Now, if you plan on doing any woodworking, there's going to come a time eventually where you need to sharpen your tools. Now, the only tools I regularly sharpen are my chisels, planer knives, and joiner knives. And today I'm going to show you how I go about sharpening my chisels. Sharpening your tools appears to be a very personal thing among woodworkers, and there's no one right way to do it. From the abrasive that you use, such as water stones, sandpaper, or a grinding wheel, or to using a honing guide or doing it freehand. I only use a 1,000, a 4,000, and an 8,000 grit water stone, and I keep them submerged in water year round. So before I use my water stones, I like to make sure that they're nice and flat, and I do that by flattening them with a stone that's designed for flattening water stones. It's really pretty easy to use. You just rub the two together, and I like to use a consistent circular motion. I've read some woodworkers complain that using one of these stones can cause your water stone to get either a convex or concave after successive flattenings, but I've never had that problem. The first thing I like to do is work the back of the chisel by working up from a 1,000 grit going to my 4,000 and then finishing up with an 8,000 grit water stone. I don't see much point in polishing the entire back of the chisel. I only work about the first inch or so of the front of the chisel. So after this 8,000 grit stone, I'll have the back of my chisel nice and flat and polished, and then I'll move on to working the bevel. Some people like to hone their chisels on their water stones freehand, while I like to use a honing guide, and that helps me maintain a constant bevel angle as I'm sharpening on the water stone. Now, this style of honing guide just clamps onto the back of your chisel, and it has a little wheel on the bottom which rides on the water stone. I like to set the primary bevel of my chisel at 25 degrees, and I do that by using this bevel angle gauge. All I need to do is slide my chisel into the bevel angle gauge so I don't see any light in between the top of the chisel and the bevel angle gauge, and then just clamp down the honing guide. I mark the back of the bevel with a Sharpie so that I can more easily see my progress as I'm honing. So I'm going to start with my 1,000 grit water stone. If you notice that the front edge of your newly abraded surface is not parallel with the front of the chisel edge, you need to adjust your honing guide. So if your primary bevel is really out of whack, this might take a little bit of effort. So don't be afraid to take mini breaks along the way. So you don't wear any one portion of the water stone more than the other. Go ahead and work the entire chisel over the entire width of the water stone. When honing my primary bevel, I only use my most aggressive water stone, which is a 1,000 grit water stone. Now I'm going to switch to my 4,000 grit water stone for the micro bevel, and then I'll polish the micro bevel with an 8,000 grit water stone. So in order to save time, there really is no need to finally polish the entire primary bevel of your chisel. It's the micro bevel that you need to finally polish, because this is the bevel that forms the cutting edge of your chisel. So we can more easily see the progress as we form our micro bevel. I went ahead and put more Sharpie onto the edge of the chisel, and I adjusted my honing gauge to 26 degrees. So after I form and polish the micro bevel at 4,000 grit, I'll go ahead and switch to an 8,000 grit water stone. I switched out my 4,000 grit water stone for my finest 8,000 grit water stone for the final polishing of our micro bevel. But before we do that, from the polishing at 4,000, you might start to feel a wire edge on the back of your chisel, and we need to remove that. And I'm going to remove this wire edge on my 8,000 grit water stone by just polishing the back of the chisel. So now we can finish off the final polishing of our micro bevel at 8,000 grit. For my polishing at 8,000 grit, I'm feeling a wire edge again on the back of the chisel. So I'm just going to knock this off one more time at 8,000 grit and then just give it one more final polishing. So this is just the way that I do it, and like I said, there's probably half a dozen other different ways to sharpen a chisel, and there is no one right way to do it. So I gotta go because I've got 4 more chisels to sharpen. So thanks for watching. Oh, and if you get a chance, please subscribe. And you can also like my Facebook page. Thanks for watching, guys.